On today's show, we continue our look at branding for musicians. Cue the titles.
30-minute music marketing for musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hello, I'm Sheldon.
And I'm Greg.
And this is 30-minute music marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music. That is you. Thank you very much for streaming/listening to this on the podcast platform, Facebook Live, wherever you consume this particular show. We thank you for your audience.
I'm going to do my a token Spotify. You've been listening to it on that. By all accounts, is it still the most?
It's still the most listened to platform for podcasts for this particular show.
Which is good. So last week, we had quite a long episode to do.
40-minute blockbuster. It was like the equivalent of Endgame.
It was.
Have you seen that, by the way?
Oh, I have seen Endgame.
Yeah.
Too poignant for my liking.
Oh, right. A bit soppy.
It was just like, and also, I'm going to be a little bit controversial, and obviously we're talking about brands here. I actually preferred Captain Marvel. I thought Captain Marvel was a really good film.
I've not seen it, so I can't comment.
I was really disappointed that her role within
Endgame... Whoa. Stop. You're not allowed to.
That's fantastic. That's all.
Right, okay. We'll cut it there. But this is...
Let us know your thoughts on Endgame.
Like the last Avengers film. This is part 2
yes.
of a two-parter. Now, we've put... So you should have ideally watched part 1. If you haven't watched part 1 and somehow you've just mysteriously clicked onto this or just watching this... if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description. So watch that one first. And I'll do a recap, of course, because having previously been in education, we all know recaps are good. So
please, recap. What was last week's episode about, Sheldon?
It was talking about why branding for musicians is so important, what branding was actually all about. We discussed that branding helps identify who you are in a very sort of literal sense. That could just be down to a logo. Branding helps you differentiate yourselves from the competition. We said as musicians there are probably far too many musicians and artists and singers.
There's a lot out there.
So if you can do anything to help differentiate yourselves from the other people around you, that's going to be a good thing. Branding can help you be more liked. We had a look at maybe one instance as to why Coca-Cola is preferred over other types of cola.
They are definitely more than just a cola drink, aren't they?
They are very much so. And branding can give you extra associations to become more than just the music, as you've said. And perhaps more importantly, branding can help increase the value of what you're selling. Branded and unbranded goods, the costs differential therein, the extra money that can come from a branded product.
Actually, I was talking about this with one of the clients at the studio yesterday, and we came on the subject of Calvin Harris. And it was difficult to see initially what his identifiable brand is, kind of thing, you know. And it's almost like, in some respects, his brand probably is the consistency of his product.
Yeah, and maybe in the first instance, when he was just starting out...
A wee nipper.
Maybe that wasn't particularly too apparent. I think maybe one of the things that we might even discuss later is that through an artist's career, that your branding and who you are as a brand might change and evolve as you as an artist grow and change and evolve also. We had a look at visual imagery and how that helps you in your quest to
fit in nicely within
brand.
your genres.
We had a look at graphic design, logos and fonts, photography, how you appear in your photographs, how that all helps send perhaps subliminal messages to the person at the other end.
In some respect, a lot of this is a bit like you go into a bookstore. I know they still exist, and I believe people still like to buy books.
Very much so.
Rather than e-books. And it's almost like helping create the front cover that gets people to kind of go, oh, what is this? And delve in a bit deeper.
There are various internet articles about the design codes that are used on book covers. So from a glance at a distance in Waterstones, you can probably tell the genre of that particular book from the colours that are used, again, the typography, the imagery, the photography, that sort of thing. So it's done to fit in because there are codes and conventions. And if you can easily tap into that and maybe carry on extending those codes and conventions, it's easier to send a message to the person on the other end. So it could be a good thing.
Unfortunately, we do, although they say never judge a book by its cover, we inevitably do judge a book by its cover.
Now, I've put it in big capital letters here, which is maybe sort of calling forward to the majority of what we're going to be doing today. Branding, if you want to sum up branding into 3 words, branding is understanding. It's helping the person at the other end, the person in the audience, your potential fan, understand who you are. So maybe we'll go on to unpack that a little throughout the rest of the episode.
So shall we get on with
very much
today's
so.
episode?
So we're going to be looking at personality and how exhibiting a personality can possibly help you become a brand as a musician. Values, personal values, how that can maybe help, maybe something you've never even thought about before, and maybe an example of how artists put all these different elements of branding together. So,
are we just on the 1 page today? Or
no, 2 pages.
Oh, 2 pages.
It's a 2-pager. It could go to 40 minutes again. I'm sure, an entertaining 40 minutes, I'm sure you'll agree.
Edge of your seat stuff.
So personality, we may or may not have a caption here, depends whether he's got time to do it or not.
Probably
right,
not.
I've said here, brands quite often exhibit a personality. So consumer brands, that is. So even though something may
I
be...
suppose even some artist brands.
Yeah, but if we talk about consumer brands, maybe the people who founded the company or maybe the original founders of the product, they tend to instill their elements of their personality within the products that they create.
Is it true that BrewDog actually enable you to take your dog into work?
I think dogs are allowed in quite a few pubs, but let's leave the canines behind, and we'll come on to BrewDog in a minute. Don't get ahead of yourself. Right, so I've just written down here some, potential personality traits that you might find in people. Right, happy, serious, gangster, sexy. I don't know whether are any of these ringing any bells for you? Intelligent, down to earth, loving, extrovert, introvert, party starter, funny, laid back, aggressive, excitable, kooky, rebellious. I could go on. So those are all, typical personality traits that you might find in people that you meet.
Yes.
Per se.
I don't know many gangsters, I will be honest.
Well, that's, maybe you do and you don't know that they're gangsters. Maybe they're just ineffective gangsters. Or they just haven't tried to extort you for money yet.
No.
Okay, so let's take a consumer brand. Now, this is your first opportunity to stick a caption in for the viewer.
Can you do your ting again, because it really helped?
Is that what I did last week?
Yeah, do it again.
Bing!
That's great.
There we go. Right, so there's a video viewer for you there. Ben and Jerry's.
Yes.
So you're familiar with the Ben and Jerry's
I'm
brand.
partial to the other Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Maybe describe for the podcast listener at home what the Ben and Jerry's graphic design is.
It is a blue sky with a few clouds. You have 2 cows spread apart. One looks like it wants to do what the front cow is doing, which is eating an ice cream. It's got its tongue out, obviously enjoying it. And they're on green grass. So it would imply a nice, pleasant day with lots of free roaming cows. So they're obviously being looked after to provide the milk to make the ice cream, which is yummy.
So in terms of the personality of the brand,
it's not taking itself too seriously.
It's fun, it's innocent, it's maybe people who are, adults.
Good welfare.
But again, it's implying people, that's values. Let's not zoom ahead onto that.
No, it's only because I looked on the other page and you put PETA, so that's why I thought about good welfare.
It's good to see you thinking.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, it's quite fun, slightly sort of hippie-ish, skewing back to childhood, and
it's obviously trying to sell itself as a fun product.
Yes.
Which is what ice cream really should be. It's almost like the complete opposite to Häagen-Dazs with their ad campaign in the 90s, which was trying to sexualise ice cream.
Which has been subsequently carried on by the Magnum brand in the UK.
Yes, you're right.
It's ice cream is sexy, seductive, but it's only because these companies...
It's messy.
put in these, these personality traits through means of association. Right, let's have a look at the consumer brand.
No,
Somebody,
funny.
sorry, bing. There we
you.
go. Now we're looking at a delicious can of BrewDog Punk IPA, and now. You're obviously aware of the BrewDog brewing brand.
I'm aware of the brand. I can't say I've ever, although I might have actually had one at yours. Was it an alcohol-free one?
He's not a big drinker.
I don't drink.
No. But are you aware of the personality traits that are attributed to the BrewDog brand?
Certain people you know are very much...
In fact, they are massive brand advocates.
I've never known someone spend so much on beer.
Hello to Keith, by the way. Hi.
So
personality. So what sort of personality traits?
I'm not the best person to ask here. To do with a company I'm not familiar
you're
with.
not a drinker. However, you'll probably go.
But
right.
I kind of get the impression. I think, and this is obviously going up. Literally looking at, they class themselves as a fun-ish company, but they obviously take their product quite seriously.
Well, I've got down here as personality traits: rebellious. They've got attitude.
Where have you got this?
There.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking that was just additional things for Ben and Jerry's.
Oh,
So I apologise.
Yes,
Carry on.
sorry. Nonconformist.
Yeah.
Doesn't care who it upsets. I don't know whether you've seen some of their controversial marketing.
No.
No. Well,
So
never mind.
why? What?
He lives in a world of his own.
Live a sheltered life.
And the actual name of the product is intended to sum all that up in one particular word and a sort of a personality word. They're punk. They are rebellious. They are.
But do they actually like? What's the reference to dog? It's not like that new Netflix documentary about Ibiza, and the guy's never actually been to Ibiza. Do they have dogs?
I don't know. It's it may be the term dog as in as someone might yo dog. I don't know. I've not fully looked into it. Look, I've been looking at branding.
You going street now? What's up, dog?
I know. I'm not nearly 50 trying to go street. Please share this video to embarrass me. Right, okay, so those are two consumer products.
Yeah.
As sort of examples of how personality traits
kind of
are attributed to what is liquids and,
You've basically chosen two things, one that you like and one that I like.
Quite possibly, yes. Right, so
now we're going on to music.
Lady Gaga. What would you say? Oh, sorry. Bing. There we go. Insert that video.
What would I say about Lady Gaga? Is that what you're going to ask me?
What would you say her personality as a superstar
But
is?
in some respects, though, it's difficult to answer because it's changed so much. Now she's probably being seen more as an actress.
Think about classic Lady Gaga, Bad Romance.
It was a very, very, very extrovert. I mean, I do get the feeling that whoever was behind her branding must have gone, what do you reckon we can get her to do now? Let's get her seeing if she'll wear a dress made out of bacon.
Well, see,
and then she
might want to include that here.
A bacon dress?
Dresses made out of meat. But the thing is, that could come from her, that could come from other people we don't necessarily know.
It's very much, though, it's like Madonna, but 20, 30 years later, where it's the shock. And in some respects, she's managed to keep the shock going, because you'd have thought with all the stuff with Madonna did, can there be anything else that is... And she's managed to do it. I mean...
Well, she's certainly following in her footsteps. Right, in terms of personality, I've got strong,
yes,
confident,
okay,
outrageous,
possibly,
extrovert,
definitely,
sexy.
Depends if you like meat on a woman.
Well,
okay.
Looking at that photo, that's ticking a few boxes for quite a few people.
Good old Stephanie, she looks quite relatively appealing.
Now, the thing that I've written down here, and I only sort of thought about this as I was writing this, we're talking about personality. Perhaps with her, it's quite fair to say that a lot of what she does is perhaps exaggerated for artistic effect. And maybe she potentially crosses the line from personality to persona.
Yeah.
And again, she's got an ever-changing persona, perhaps, because she hasn't really done anything as outrageous as what she was doing at the Met Gala this week for quite some time. So one can maybe argue that there's a fine line between maybe showing people your real personality and maybe trying to craft...
I think that's what she's trying to do now.
An artistic persona.
Is show a person rather than a character.
But the whole point of being in a position as a musician whereby you try to put your personality on show, and the great thing really that's now so easy and so simple to do in terms of every aspect of social media, in terms of the posts that you can make, and even blog posts on your website. You can just show people, little videos to show people exactly what you're like, what you get up to of a weekend, maybe when you're not gigging, and give people a more rounded sense of who you are as a person. The idea is that there's all those people at home, in terms of your audience and your fans, watching this, and if they can recognise elements of your personality within themselves, that creates a connection, and people find themselves drawn closer to people that they feel that they have, that they have similarities with.
But I mean, how do you? I mean, for quite a while. Sorry, I'm just about to do a bit of branding myself.
He is open to any sort of potential
Any kind of advice.
any offers.
If they do a Mr. Ironic one, I would like that. In terms, or Mr. Plot.
Free tea bags as well. You will tea bags, coffee. He will accept.
Clothes.
So yeah, go on. You can drink that. I will say is that people might say, "Oh, this is the person that I associated with because I can see myself in them." It could also be, maybe in the case with Lady Gaga, is if I could be anybody, this is the sort of person I would like to be, and maybe that's what draws.
That's because
closer.
that in some way answers the question, that because it's difficult to. I mean, I'd suggest to people that oh, I find it difficult being myself on stage. Then it's like, well, create a character that it is those things that you wish you were, without having to, and in some ways that what you've said is reinforcing that idea.
Probably the best example of that as an artistic performance persona is my good mate Freddie Mercury. Because anyone who's ever seen any sort of footage of him just backstage or in the studio, he's very quiet and a very sort of socially timid person. However, get him on stage and he's a rocket. But
you actually were the one that said about, because you were saying that he doesn't do much talking between songs because he's absolutely rubbish at it. And and it's really weird to even believe that, because when you see him at like Wembley or whatever, he's literally got everyone in his hand.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, how can you then tell me his just small talk with the audience is rubbish?
But it is though.
Yeah, it's just.
What's Live Aid? And he does one little speech in between, just before.
But you
Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and it's rubbish.
But you would never
never think
believe
that,
no. You for all terms and purposes, to see him, you kind of go, this person could do this in a sleep.
Yeah. Moving on from personality, I think that's covered. So as I said, if you exhibit your personality through, probably best through your social media posts, you can show people different elements of your personality as you go about, and again, this could be within the text. You could show people through sort of video. And what used to happen in the old days is that the only way that you get to learn about the personalities of your favourite artists or the members of the bands that you'd like to, the likes of you and I would have to buy music magazines and pour through and go, oh, great, there's an interview here with...
Or do you not remember that bands used to have a yearly annual book?
An annual?
I had a Pet Shop Boys annual.
Did you really?
Yeah. And
wow. Was it 100% unofficial?
No, it was a genuine... And it introduced me to the world of Chris Lowe's fascination with sunglasses.
Very good.
And hats.
Right, I'm going to move us on now. I'm going to talk about values. Probably something you've never, thought about before. But brands need to set and state their values. So what I'll say to you is, what do you stand for? What do you think is right and should be protected in this particular world? So I'm going to give you one consumer example. Bing! Here we go. This is an advert that I scanned from it was a weekend supplement magazine in one of the national newspapers for a non-dairy drink called Oatly. Just one of those, non-milk things.
Oat milk.
Oat milk. Succinctly put there, Greg. Thank you very much.
It's actually pretty decent stuff, though. I've had it.
It can be quite expensive.
That you beat me to it. It is
Yeah,
quite expensive.
We buy the cheaper soy stuff from Aldi.
Yeah, but soya milk is nowhere near as nice as oat milk. Sorry, you've
But
digressed.
unfortunately, until you can, you've got the massive riches to pull off the oat milk heist.
Yeah.
So here, taking up a full page of this particular magazine, here's this particular non-dairy milk actually stating to people at home what their brand values are. And obviously that text is quite small, so I'll just read some edited highlights. It says, everybody is of equal worth. Humans should be put before profits. Companies have as much responsibility as politicians in order to build a good society. Now, why did they spend what is probably, I don't know, maybe £10,000 to take up a full advert in a magazine? It's not
Can you
cheap.
actually
5,000 maybe?
Will you
10,000?
say which newspaper it was in?
I don't want to say I'm a liberal Guardian reader, but
I'm just
it was the
curious to
Guardian
see.
Weekend magazine.
Okay, so then it gives you an idea of who they're actually aiming
Demographics.
at. Right. Okay.
Okay, so and again, I don't drink milk. I drink soy milk. So they've already got my interest. So the idea there is if they can explicitly say to me, who I don't particularly use this product at the moment, if they can say to me, right, here's our values. We believe in this, and we believe in that. The idea is that the next time I'm at a supermarket, going through the shelves, going almond milk, soya milk, and I see a carton of Oatly, they go, oh right, there's that milk, and they believe those things, and I believe those things as well. So in order to make
It's appealing.
it's going to maybe inform my purchase and make me buy that, because the people who make this again share that similarity in terms of belief. So I'm more likely maybe to make a purchase from them than from everyone else.
So it's almost appealing to your ideology.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing I was going to ask is, are they a cooperative?
I don't know. You always want to expand this too much. Let's
Because
not go off
I'm a curious individual.
That's
I like
something you can Google that once we finish the podcast and the show. Right, getting back to Brewdog. Brewdog actually have a charter. We'll put a link to their charter, which is on their website.
a charter.
Yeah. Basically, it's a posh word for a mission statement.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So, edited highlights of this mission statement are: we bleed craft beer. So, in other words, if you cut us open, they bleed. It's like with that into craft. But look, that's them. It's not me. They're uncompromising. They are geeks, and also they blow stuff up. As in terms of the market that they're in, they're not afraid to stand on a few people's toes to actually change the market to more accommodate what they do.
We bleed craft beer.
It's not me. Well, please don't try that at home to see what you bleed of. I'm sure it's blood. Right, but what they're doing
Keith
is...
might bleed craft
He might, actually.
Brewdog beer.
So, it's all about defining your purpose. And so, as a musician, the thing I'd say to you, right, what is your mission statement? What sort of values do you hold dear? What's important to you? Now, let's go musician example. Bing! Again, it's another Queen reference. I'm sorry, I do like Queen. It's my mate Brian May.
You're obsessed.
I know, but
And
they're good.
You take the J middle miss out of me for liking BT. You are far worse.
I do like all the Queen lads. So here's Brian May, and if you follow Brian on Instagram, goodness me, what you're going to get is a barrage of grams about him and his obsession with trying to protect and save wildlife. It used to be the badgers. It was all about saving the badgers.
Oh, has he moved on now?
He's moved on now. He's moved on to hedgehogs. There's a myriad, loads of photos of him and hedgehogs and foxes as well. Now he's after protecting foxes.
He's a busy man.
He's a very busy man. So those are the things that he holds really dear to him. So those are the things that he wants to
badgers,
give
hedgehogs,
airtime
foxes.
to and exposure to on social media. So he's basically saying, I'm not just a guitarist with one of the best rock bands that there's ever been. I'm a person as well, and to show you how much of a person, these are the things that are really important and I'm very passionate about, and he wants to spread those to other people. And again, the same sort of thing is that other people within his audience will have the same sort of views, and the idea is that you make a greater connection between the audience at home and yourself by showing people these views. Now then, in terms of values, I'm going to raise a particular point. We live in maybe wherever we live in the world, a highly politicised time, don't we, Greg?
You could say that.
You could say. Right, so what about your individual politics? Do you think, as a musician, you should be, in terms of your political values, your political beliefs, you should be talking about them on social media, when in doing so, you might alienate and maybe push away and put off a certain percentage of your audience? I'm throwing that question out to you then.
You've
Greg.
asked the worst person in the world. So I'd be like, no, let everyone know where you stand. It's a tough one. I mean, it depends how important that is to the act. I mean, in some cases, Tom, I can't remember his surname.
Robinson.
Hang on. Tommy Robinson.
No,
right.
Tom Robinson.
The guy behind Jonathan Pie. No, I'm talking about the guy behind Jonathan Pie. He's built a career
I forget what his
based
actual
on
name
writing, creating a character where the emphasis is his political
but
rants.
he's not like.
But what I'm saying is, so it all depends on, punk music, for example, probably is more going to be infused with that within its message. A ballad probably isn't. So I think it really depends on your musical genre that you're making.
Well, what I would say...
Morrissey...
Oh, don't talk to... Right. Well, in order to... Right,
I mean, he has become all the things he used to hate.
Yeah, unfortunately he has. And there's something on social media which has made it even worse today.
But then you look at bands like Oasis that try to, who make this working class reference to their music. So that would have been a big part. Probably indie is more so than, say, your EDM, for example.
Well, what I would say is that there's no right or wrong answer. Like I say, if you do express your political beliefs, you could put people off. However, again, talking about making people and drawing people closer to yourself, I think that's one thing that would do that. But always be mindful of the fact that if you do, you might have an opinion. People will have opposite opinions, and as long as you're okay with again, you could be so principled that really,
But
it's
in some point though, it's if you're going back to some of the things we talked about before about this in the first episode against this, I don't want to sell out, I don't want to be corporatized and stuff like that. So in some respects, my memory isn't all there today. Sorry, I need to rewind this. It's you got to be careful what you're going to do, because one or the other is going to cause a problem. I've completely lost my train of thought, and it will come back to me.
It's tricky. Well, let's sum it up to say there's no right or wrong answers.
For every fan you make, you could lose a fan.
Exactly. So tread carefully. If you feel as though it's really important to you and really important to your brand, then by all means. And again, what you could do is you could find by doing so, you could find a whole new audience, pros and cons. But
it would be good to hear pop music talking about, things like climate change, which has become very politicized.
But this is it. It doesn't have to be politics.
No.
So it may well be what I put down here is that in terms of again all your values, write down. Take a piece of paper or notepad on your preferred
or phone
computing platform, and actually sort of write down a manifesto. What are the things that you should be protected? What are the things that you like? What are the causes that you should support? What are you against? And by making these columns, these are the topics that you should maybe be sort of talking about. And if climate change is is something that's particularly important to you, or any other topic for that matter, you could blog about it. You could start your own podcast about it.
Haven't you effectively turned most of your annoyances, things you like, you basically turned everyday subject matter into material for your own band, haven't you?
That's coming up later.
Right, okay. For those who, because we didn't actually describe in the picture, for those listening, the Brian May picture is holding a badger
Yeah, badger
next to a pond.
next to it, and he's enjoying himself.
The Brian May, that is not the badger.
Yes. So there you go. So create your own manifesto. What do you stand for? What are the things that you hold dear? And make sure that you talk about those and give airtime to those on the likes of social media.
It is strange that bands don't, they will see it with all the things, at the end of the day, they would have had to buy equipment, they would have bought equipment based on certain reasons, but then they apply, very few actually apply the same
those
techniques
sorts of, to their own sort of career.
I mean, putting across the idea of a mission statement for a band is it's so obvious, it's so obviously forgotten at the same time.
It's like, as a band or as an artist, in terms of your mission statement, what are you actually doing this for? What do you hope to achieve?
So, coming on to the next one, are you going to do a bing?
Bing! So, let's try and have a look at all the things that we've looked at so far in terms of imagery,
yes,
in terms of personality, in terms of values. Let's try and have a look at just one particular artist and see where we can...
Just to help me with the edit process.
Yes.
I know you said Bing, but the picture that's come up, I have no reference as to why it would be up now whilst we're talking.
Well, we've just reached the point in the show.
Okay, so I put it up now.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So it's pink.
Oh, is that who it was?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Thanks for that.
That's fine, anytime.
It's basically shoulder up for those on...
Yes, it's a typical publicity headshot of the Grammy multi-million award-winning artist, Pink.
Really?
Yeah, just because you don't like her.
I didn't say I didn't like
the Pink. Hashtag Greg doesn't like Pink.
Pink hater.
I don't know where the apostrophe comes in. Right, so in terms of Pink's... Well, in terms of the imagery... I chose this particular shot because she's pulling a grrr face, a sort of like a snarl.
Yes, that snarl is probably a better word.
So there are elements of her personality coming through there, I would say. So
you put, can I read some stuff out? Because I feel a bit...
from what you know about... Talk about what you know, from empirically about the artist Pink. Just from what you've seen.
I think she would probably like to be seen as a nonconformist, someone who's more independent, somebody who is not so much directed by her management, but would probably tell them what she's going to do. And, she's not always been presented in a typical female artist way.
I was having a look through her sort of biography, and as a very young person, she was put into two girl groups, both of which dissolved simply because she didn't fit in. She, in terms of her personality was non-conformist. I've got down here in terms of elements of her personality. I've got feisty, raw in terms of maybe a personality and carrying through to a subject matter, honest, sensitive, angry.
Yeah, I mean that picture is, instead of it being, you can obviously tell that she's not exactly unattractive, is she? But she doesn't have to be a typical headshot of an artist where everything's done prim and proper. It's almost a bit like I can still be attractive, but in my own way, kind of thing.
Right. In terms of her personal values, did a bit of googling before. She's campaigned.
Didn't realise you were a Pink fan.
Whatever. Campaign, I was going to say PETA, but I believe some Australian or American, is it Pete? They call it PETA? Let's go PETA. PETA, she campaigned for those. She's outspoken for LGBT rights. She's done stuff for UNICEF, Save the Children, and human rights. So as an artist, she does campaign and is outwardly outspoken for the things that she believes in. And in terms of her songs, and obviously she's had very much a long established career, and let's face it, we're quite old, so in terms of her newer stuff, I'm older than you, and I don't interface with pop music radio maybe as much as I used to do. So whenever I think of Pink, I maybe think of some of her works from the earlier catalogue. So I'd think of stuff like Raise Your Glass, You in Your Hand. Are you aware of what the subject matter of You in Your Hand is?
This sounds a bit. I'm going to keep quiet here.
It is explicit on when you go on Spotify. It's about being a woman in a nightclub / bar and being approached by a sleazy bloke, and
Right, that's not what I would have thought.
Yeah,
but,
she pushes him away.
Right, so basically,
and says that the only fun that he'll be having tonight is.
Oh right, okay. So basically, she's talking about unwanted advances.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Get the party started.
Know that one.
So, I would suggest the elements of her personality is actually embedded within the songwriting process. And what happens then is something like that becomes a package. So it's often when people are writing songs and crafting their music in terms of the actual subject matter, the more you can think maybe outwardly and maybe overtly about your individual personality, how that personality connects with other people, the more you can incorporate that within your body of work, the more that the people at home are going to actually find that the music that you create resonates with your listeners, I would suggest. I mean, without wishing to particularly go into my own band too much, but that's what we do. We incorporate, quite overtly, we incorporate all the things that make up our individual brand and our personality, and we write about the things that ourselves come across every day and the people at home come across every day, and that's one of the reasons why I think our music is particularly.
It does resonate
successful.
a lot with your fans, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. The gig this Saturday sold out, by the way.
Where is this gig?
It's Halifax.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. You can't come. It's sold out, and the next one's sold out as well. So just saying. So
What you're basically saying, this stuff works.
this stuff works, That's why I'm here. So, recapping, branding has a lot of individual elements, and maybe this is the one thing. If you were just to say to somebody, right, do this, and then you can become a brand, that would be particularly easy. However, because it's all these individual elements, it does take time, perhaps, to put everything into place, and maybe you don't become instantly, same with most things in the music industry, overnight. You've got to lay the seeds and plant the foundations and build on those and keep basically sending these messages and displaying these values and displaying elements of your personality over a long period of time. But the great thing is, again, back in the old days when social media didn't exist, you really struggled to do this. But from whatever social media platform you use, you can be building that brand each and every day.
I mean, should you worry that your brand will adapt?
You as a artist will adapt, so your branding will also adapt, because over time your personality will probably change as much as everything else, and your values may change as well, Morrissey.
Well, actually, talking about, we were saying about things on Radio 1, they're looking at the playlists and stuff like that, and it's almost getting to the point now, Beyonce will more than likely be played on Radio 2, maybe more than Radio 1, or at least the same.
Touching two demographics.
I know,
at the same time.
that means there's obviously got to be a slight change in some form of branding change, because their audience is potentially going to change.
It's funny. So what I'd suggested next, as an exercise, maybe to try and get you.
You've chosen a hard one.
Well, what I would. So I said to myself, right. Well, if the listener at home, right, can take Adele, maybe try and examine elements of her, musical career. Her, Adele as a brand. What actually makes that brand work. So we've talked about image. And even though we haven't got any visuals, she's very much the classic chanteuse. It's it's ball gowns. It's very much that 1950s what's her face, Audrey Hepburn sort of look. It's harking back to the classic
I suppose
era
it's the complete opposite to Taylor Swift, isn't it?
Very, very much so. In terms of her individual personality, you could argue that there's two sides. There's the on-stage. Again, diva's not the right word that I want to use.
She's more like a songstress.
Classic songstress, however, informally. She's very much the old, Cockney geezer, isn't she?
She does, when you hear her speak, it's not what you'd expect.
No.
And not in a bad way, it's just that, she's a bit Courtney.
So, and it was then something that just struck me. But in terms of, the biggest artists on the planet, do they naturally have strong branding elements within them that aren't particularly forced? Again, if you think about Lady Gaga and elements of, her outward personality, is it that record companies can take somebody like her because she has a strong brand to begin with, and it's only with a little bit of a marketing push that artists like her rise to the top really quickly because that branding is successfully already in place?
I suppose if you've got the core element, to make it that more extravagant isn't as hard as trying to do that later on. Because you do get a lot of people, that certainly I see, who are very, very hesitant about trying something that is, I'm not too sure about that. And I think, you would have had a lot more difficulty, I would have thought, suddenly putting that on Lady Gaga, and if it wasn't there at the embryonic stage. I
do think it's particularly sort of natural with her. And again, like we say, it's probably exaggerated for artistic effect, the persona rather than the personality. But I just think that if you have got all these elements in place in terms of your imagery, personality, values, clearly stating who you are as an artist and making that sort of quite outward, and finding yourself resonating with people who share those same values, those same attributes, and if people can clearly see what sort of, again, artist you are from your imagery, your photography, your typography, and every other elements of your graphic design. It doesn't take a lot then in terms of when you try and apply a little bit of marketing spend. So again, if the same visual, the same imagery comes in your visuals, in terms of your music sort of promos, if people can sort of see that, they can instantly get a hook and a handle on who you are. Once you start applying a bit of marketing budget and marketing spend to that, it should make your job, hopefully, a whole lot easier.
It should snowball a lot easier.
It should make it a whole lot more effective.
Because if you're having to, it is almost like, with what we're trying here to kind of get episodes ahead of ourselves. So, in terms of a lot of the work is done. So when you do kind of start, it's a lot more, it all kind of comes together.
And it's all about, in this day and age, becoming more than just a song on a playlist. That isn't really enough. And again, it's when somebody, maybe in their Discover Weekly, finds you as a new artist on their sort of playlist. When they come to Google you, check you out, have a look at your Facebook page or your Instagram profile, what are they going to see when they go there? Are they going to scroll through your feed and get an instant overview just from your imagery alone, in terms of the sorts of pictures that you're posting? Does that say who you are as an artist or as a musician? Can people get a glimpse and a handle on who you are just from that sort of imagery alone? It's the same sort of thing.
I mean, back in there, I would buy CDs and stuff, and you would look through. You wouldn't just buy the music. You'd want the inlay card. You'd read through the inlay card. You'd see who else has worked on it. You'd see who they put in the thanks section to see if there's another point of similarity to what you wanted. And now, obviously that's not so much, but am I the only person who gets slightly disappointed when the bio section on an artist on Spotify is very little there?
Yeah, this is it. People,
I want more. I want more than just that record.
Again, talking about branding is understanding. Like you said, when we find a new artist and we go to the artist bio, maybe on Spotify, we want more information in terms of the context within which this music has been created. So the more elements of understanding that you can provide, and the more that you're quite explicit with in terms of pumping that out there through whatever channel that may be, the more happy the listener will be in the other end. So job for you would be, as I said last week, we said in terms of assess all your assets, as they refer to in marketing terms, in terms of your visuals and your graphic design. Maybe you need to be explicit on a piece of paper, identify which elements of your personality you'd like maybe to concentrate more on and start telling more people about through social media. Create a little bit of a manifesto, I or we we like these things, we don't like these things, and you should start maybe talking about those sorts of things again on your social platforms. See what response you get from your audience, and maybe adopt, adapt, and improve. See which ones maybe resonate most. Maybe concentrate more on those. And when you're thinking about your song catalogue, writing your material, your values and your personality, is that evident within the music that you're creating? The more of it that it is, hopefully, the greater, again, resonance there will be between your audience and your musical outputs.
So, basically, now we would like them to kind of maybe tag some of your stuff in the comment section below.
Yes.
So we can actually see your brand.
Yes. Do you want us to have a look, and we'll give an honest opinion. Yeah, we'll be supportive.
Yeah.
Very good. I think that might be quite a good future feature.
Yeah.
But plenty for you to mull over. Thanks very much for watching this particular week's episode. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe on your audio platform of choice. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can also subscribe. They do say rate and leave a review. It's entirely up to you. I'll leave it to it's on your, let it be on your conscience.
So
Thank you very much for watching this week's episode. We shall see you next time.
see you soon.
Bye.